Eventually, everyone goes on a summer vacation with their parents. After weeks of anticipating the end of school, summer finally appears, and at some point, the trip begins. Her parents were arguing, and she felt like crying. Annalisa curled up in the back seat of the car, placed the headphones on her ears, and turned up the volume. The long ride up north to the white clapboard cottage with the screened-in porch had really taken its toll, and the family unloaded the overstuffed station wagon in total silence. Annalisa left the small cottage and walked far through the wind-blown sand dunes to the beach. Soon, the late afternoon sun was working its way downward along the secluded stretch of beach on the large Great Lake. Pools of sunlight streamed through breaks in the clouds and danced on the surface of these gently formed swells of water. Anna's long flowing hair was barely moving in the afternoon breeze as she stood still along the shore. She was preoccupied with the thoughts of her parents' argument. She remembered how they had parted after disagreeing so much during the long drive, and she was worried. Maybe they'll never talk to each other again, she thought. Maybe they'll get divorced. A bit too young to be alone, she began walking along the water's edge with one arm out extended and one eye closed. On the horizon, the silhouette of a small fishing boat shimmered in the still summer air. Anna heard only the sounds of the lake water coming ashore and the distant seagulls searching for their dinner in the dark blue-green water of the bay. Placing one foot directly in front of the other, she made light impressions in the wet sand and watched her footprints disappear at the water's edge. I wish these feelings would disappear, she thought. As Anna walked along, the water ran over her feet and between her toes. She noticed hundreds of small round stones that lay everywhere, sparkling like jewels in the sun, polished shiny by the water that washed over their surface in an endless rhythm of movement. She stopped and pushed her hands into the pockets of her dress, occasionally pulling back her bangs from her eyes. It was getting late, and she now felt nervous about being alone on the beach. Suddenly, she heard a quiet voice. "Hello." Startled, Anna took a step back and looked around in all directions, but she saw no one. "I must be hearing things," she said to herself. "Hello," the voice repeated. The sound seemed to be coming from the water itself. No longer startled, but now somewhat frightened, Anna stared hard at the beach where the voice seemed to have originated. All she could see was a smooth and perfectly round stone that glistened in the sunlight. "Hello," the voice repeated. It was the stone. "Don't be afraid. I am here for you to find. I have been waiting a long time. Please don't be afraid." "Stones don't talk," Anna said aloud, amazed. Then she watched carefully as the stone moved and turned itself ever so slightly. "Please don't leave me," said the stone. "I need your help. Please, will you help me?" Still thinking, it moved all by itself. She whispered hesitantly, "What can I do?" "Just pick me up," the stone replied. "Walk south along the beach, and I will tell you when to set me down. Oh, please, it would mean so much to me, and for you as well." "Me?" asked Anna. "What will happen to me?" A sudden breeze came up, and she could no longer hear the gulls on the bay. The fishing boat had disappeared. Anna saw no one else on the beach. Though she was still afraid, the stone's voice was kind and gentle. She decided to follow her intuition. After all, she thought, what harm is there in picking up a stone? She reached down and picked the stone up from the beach and began to walk slowly without saying a word. Just moments later, she saw the sun reflect from a second stone. Its color was the same, but darker. Like the one she now carried in her hand, the second stone glistened brightly and stood out from all the rest. "Set me down next to that one," the stone said from inside her hand. Anna walked slowly to the new stone and, without hesitation, gently placed the stone in her hand next to the one lying on the beach, so that the two were just barely touching. The incoming waves washed over her feet several times as she stood looking at the two stones in amazement. No more words were spoken. She heard the sound of low-flying seagulls once again, and she looked over her shoulder into the slow-setting sun for a moment to watch the graceful birds hover in the breeze, almost still. Though it was only for a few seconds since she looked away, when Anna looked back at the two stones, she saw that they had begun to dissolve and slowly disappear. At that very same moment, she noticed a man and a woman gradually begin to appear in the distance. She realized they were walking toward her at the same time the two stones had disappeared. The man and the woman approached her, holding hands. "Anna, where have you been?" her mother called. "We've been looking everywhere for you. You've walked too far down the beach by yourself." "We were getting worried about you," her father said gently. "Are you all right?" Annalisa ran and leaped at her mother, her face falling deep into her mother's dress. She hugged her tight, while trembling ever so slightly inside. "I don't know what happened," Annalisa said softly as her father knelt down into the sand. "It's getting late, Anna. We've got to get back to the cottage before it gets much darker. We're just glad you're all right." As they turned to start back through the hills of beach sand, Anna, clinging to her mother, her father asked, "Do you collect beach stones, Annalisa?" He extended his hand and opened it to offer his daughter two stones. "I picked these up just for you. We love you, Anna. We would never want anything to happen to you." Annalisa took the stones from her father's hand without speaking and held them tightly. She was happy to be there with her parents. They walked back through the dunes in the fading light to the clapboard cottage with the screened-in porch. She held the two stones for hours, wondering whether they were the stones that had disappeared, and would they speak again. But neither stone ever spoke, and over time, Annalisa came to question what had happened on the beach that late afternoon. The two stones at the beach had brought everyone closer together. The rest of their vacation was wonderful and flew by without a single argument. As she grew older, Annalisa often thought about the events that afternoon at the beach. But no matter what, she always made a point to keep the two stones that her father had given her next to one another on her bedroom dresser, just barely touching.